Hyundai says that their updated Tucson Hybrid comes with 231 horsepower and a fun-to-drive factor. Now, when it comes to hybrid crossovers, I've heard that before, and it usually ends with me explaining how efficiency and engagement are mutually exclusive concepts. But Hyundai's thrown some interesting tech at this problem. They've got their eMotion Dynamics, a more powerful electric motor, and drive modes that supposedly transform this thing from grocery getting to, well, something more interesting. Those are some pretty big promises. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things, and on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now, I've driven enough hybrids to understand sporty, and this context means sporty for a hybrid, which is kind of like being the fastest walker in a walking race. Now, Hyundai has made some bold claims about this Tucson Hybrid when it comes to their eMotion Dynamics tech, as well as how they're deploying the electric motor here. And the question is whether they've cracked the code that other manufacturers are trying to chase, or if this is just marketing hype. And before we get into what this is like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. Although this is a 2026 for 2025, the Tucson got some major updates. There's the new grille design with fewer daytime running light elements, a complete interior redesign with the big digital displays. There's Hyundai's enhanced eMotion Dynamics tech and a more powerful 47.7 kilowatt electric motor. Under the hood is a 1.6 liter turbocharged four-cylinder paired with an electric motor and a 6-speed automatic, not a CVT or a dual clutch. The power unit makes 231 horsepower combined and 271 pounds of torque combined. The onboard battery is a tiny 1.49 kilowatt hour size. Transmission is a 6-speed automatic. This does have Hyundai's H-Track all-wheel drive system. Steering's electrically assisted. Suspension's based around McPherson struts at the front, multi-link at the rear, conventional dampers, four-wheel disc brakes, of course. Wheels and tires are 19s on this trim, and curb weight is just a tick or two above 3,900 pounds. Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this, and if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. When it comes to hybrid performance, most manufacturers treat that like a participation trophy. Look, we made a hybrid and it doesn't suck to drive. But this Tucson actually delivers on that performance promise. The electric motor provides instant torque fill, making up for any gap from the four-cylinder turbo. The combined 231 horsepower feels stronger than the number suggests, that's for sure, because the power delivery is immediate and consistent. It's not going to win any drag races, but it accelerates with the kind of confidence that makes merging onto highways effortless. Well, in the interests of science, as much as we take science seriously, let's give this a launch, shall we? Foot firmly on the brake, right foot going to the floor now. No reaction from this Tucson Hybrid, but when we release the brake, let's see what happens. Instant torque, that's for sure. The gasoline motor springs to life, and we're up to speed. Very impressive. What is really impressive is that electric torque. That is for sure. No question about that. This does 0 to 60 in apparently 7-ish seconds, which is more than quick enough. Off the line, definitely not a rocket, but getting up to highway speeds, accelerating to make your way through traffic, no trouble at all. And what I find is that this drivetrain seems to be electric first. It really wants to engage that electric motor before firing up the four-cylinder gasoline motor. Love the fact that we've got a 6-speed automatic and we can control those gears manually with shift paddles here on the steering wheel. Now, it will not hold gears. It will not let the engine get to red line and bounce off a rev limiter. No, it actually upshift for you. But every once in a while, when the corners get interesting or driving demands manual gear changes or manual gear selection, well, this will do it for you, and really appreciate that. Unlike much of the competition that does use a CVT, and actually, according to people on Reddit, cars with CVT GTs actually don't have transmissions, but that's another story for another day. Every once in a while, like here at lower speeds, when we're asking for moderate acceleration, we do get a little bit of that four-cylinder sound, but after a while, it's just masked by a little bit of road noise and also the sound deadening that's going on in the cabin. It's actually fairly quiet in here, but yeah, every once in a while you will remember you are driving a Tucson Hybrid with a four-cylinder gasoline motor. Now the drive modes actually do something here which puts this Tucson Hybrid ahead of much of the competition. Eco mode dulls throttle response but maximizes electric usage. The default mode balances everything sensibly. Sport mode sharpens throttle response, holds gears longer, and makes the steering a little heavier. The differences are immediately noticeable, not just different dashboard graphics. Baby mode, yes, that's really what they call it, smooths out acceleration for sensitive passengers or cargo. Yes, baby mode is a real thing, and that just goes to show that people at Hyundai who worked on this Tucson are real people with real families and real needs transporting them. That electric motor makes 195 pounds of torque immediately, which is more instantly gratifying than Amazon Prime and more satisfying than finding a parking spot at Costco on a Saturday. Behind the wheel, we have a mix of good Hyundai fundamentals as well as some of their modern tech. The good fundamentals are a seat that is comfortable, supportive. In this trim level, it's heated and cooled as well. And there's lots of adjustment here, very comfortable over longer drives. Lots of adjustment in the seat as well as the steering wheel. So I'm seated perfectly here behind the wheel. Now, in terms of ergonomics, we've got a mix of buttons and switches and some dials, and then we have some touch-based controls for the climate controls. Hyundai loves putting this shifter on the column here, and I appreciate why they do it. It actually works pretty well. It's very easy to deal with, keeps this area uncluttered and free for other things, which is fantastic. It's still a little bit strange if you're coming from an internal combustion engine car and haven't experienced this, but Hyundai's been putting this in their cars, especially their EVs, for a long time. The digital instrument cluster is legible in all kinds of lighting, gives me all the information I want. In this trim level, we do have a heads-up display that I can mostly see through my polarized sunglasses. The infotainment system is pretty straightforward. The system itself, the UI, very simple, very easy to navigate, although it can be complex given the amount of systems, especially safety systems, that are part of this Tucson Hybrid. But I use it on wireless CarPlay, works perfect that way. Wireless charger here, and it does show that it's actually charging, which is great. And there are some secondary controls here for drive modes as well as terrain modes, and the wonderful auto hold function, which I absolutely love because I live in a city sitting at traffic lights all the time. In terms of spaciousness, well, there's lots of room for you and your front seat passenger, that's for sure, and they've done a great job of utilizing the available space into places to put your stuff, like here on the dashboard and here below the wireless charger and cup holders as well. There's lots of storage in the armrests, bottle holders in the door. Second row, definitely spacious as well. I can fit comfortably behind myself in the seating position, and then under the hatch, tons of room, way more than I could ever use. Plus, those rear seats are the split and folding kind, and you can actually drop them from the hatch. You don't have to do them from the rear doors. You can actually lower them from the hatch, which makes things very easier loading stuff into your Tucson. And because you're seated high off the road, visibility is excellent in all directions, including rearward. I think the only enhancement here would be if Hyundai added a camera mirror, but that's about it. Great visibility in all directions. Really appreciate that, and I think that's one of the reasons why people buy crossovers. Now, for the haters out there, well, let's address the elephant or elephants on the dashboard, these two screens. The thing is, these two screens kind of curve into each other like a really expensive boomerang, and before you roll your eyes and start the whole too many screens rant, Hyundai actually thought this through. The instrument cluster shows exactly what you need when you need it. The infotainment screen is angled towards the driver, and they kept physical knobs for some of the climate controls and the audio. The interface is fast, the graphics are crisp, and everything responds immediately. It's like they watched other manufacturers struggle with laggy touchscreens and decide to do it right the first time. There's a load of tech here, and I'm not going to do it justice. Starts with wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. There is a wireless charger here, as I mentioned. You can connect to the system with a wire or just charge your devices with a wire. Then there's other things like the digital key, like this fingerprint sensor, so you can start your Tucson Hybrid with just a fingerprint. There's loads more tech here, and if you're one of those tech forward people, I think you'll appreciate what Hyundai has done with this Tucson Hybrid. The overall dynamics of this Tucson Hybrid definitely tuned to be crowd pleasing, that's for sure. I mean, this does have a baby mode after all, but it's much more nuanced than that, and for some good reasons. Starts with the steering. It's light enough for parking situations and then weights up nicely when your speeds increase. Turn in is predictable. The car tracks straight without constant corrections, and it doesn't get nervous when you ask it to change direction quickly. It handles like a well-sorted family crossover that happens to be confident rather than a sports car pretending to be practical. And the difference matters more than you think, because there are some crossovers out there that make you feel like they're fighting your inputs. The brakes actually deserve special mention, because anytime a hybrid's involved, it can go any which way, and they're actually very good here. The transition between regenerative braking and actual friction braking is seamless here, and you can't feel when the system switches between the two. Pedal feel is consistent and predictable. Modulation is excellent, and there's no dead zones in the pedal at all. If anything, the brake pedal's a little soft off the top, but stopping distances are competitive with the segment, and the brakes don't fade during repeated stops as we tested today. It's the kind of braking system that just simply gives you confidence, because it's not requiring constant mental attention for its unpredictable behavior. Even though I called this dynamics package crowd pleasing, it's actually much more competent in the corners than you'd think. Body roll is there, but it's well controlled. The ride is fantastic without being harsh, and the Tucson remains composed during quick transitions and doesn't get unsettled by mid-corner bumps or sudden steering inputs. And overall, just like the brakes, I'd call the steering confidence inspiring. Since we're here, we're at some corners. I think we should attack them, shall we? Let's. Great turn in, not a lot of feel there. Brakes are definitely responsive. Yes, a bit of body roll here, but the body and wheel motion very well controlled, and we've just got standard dampers here. They're not the adaptive kind. Lots of confidence in the brakes. Steering allows me to carve a perfect line here. And yeah, we're controlling the gearbox manually, and glad this Tucson Hybrid allows us to do that. Tough corner coming up here off camber on the exit. Confuses a lot of vehicles. Let's see how we do here. Pick up the power off camber here. No trouble at all. Soaking up the bumps on this rough road. Yeah, there's maybe a little extra body motion than I would like, but that goes back to this dynamics package being crowd pleasing. But in the corners, it's actually very competent, and this e-motion system is actually very good. It's one of those things that a lot of people don't talk about, but actually works to give you all sorts of confidence when you're behind the wheel of this Tucson Hybrid. Think of this e-motion dynamics system as having an invisible co-pilot who's really good at physics, but never tells you how to drive. Some manufacturers have been doing this sort of thing for a while. Mazda, for one, is a great example. And the system continuously analyzes data from road sensors, steering input, suspension movement, even navigation to predict what you're about to do before you fully commit to doing it. When you hit a speed bump, the system actively counteracts the vertical movement to smooth the ride. When you dive into a corner, the system applies strategic braking and acceleration to different wheels to pull the car through the turn. When you need to make an emergency maneuver, and hopefully you don't, it instantly shifts weight distribution for maximum front tire grip and then stabilizes everything afterwards. It's all happening automatically and invisibly. You just experience better handling, smoother rides, and more confidence without knowing why. It's all very subtle and works seamlessly in the background. It's kind of like having me as your co-driver, except the e-motion system doesn't judge your driving or your musical choices. Seriously though, this e-motion system makes this very interesting at and around its limits. I did take this on my handling loop to understand what its on-limit balance was like, and you can actually point this thing. You lift off the throttle, well, it tightens up the line in the corner. It is remarkable what they've done with just what is basically software added on to all of the systems that were already here. How do you spec yours? Well, it's a fairly easy question to answer. What you are looking at is the 2026 Hyundai Tucson Hybrid, limited trim in the US, ultimate here in Canada. This is cashmere bronze paint, and that is the black leather interior. The entry-level Tucson Hybrid starts at $33,465 US. In this limited trim, this is $41,295 as tested. In Canada, the base Tucson Hybrid is $38,000. This ultimate is $47,799 plus $250 for the cashmere bronze paint for a total as tested of $48,049 Canadian, and these prices are before freight, fees, taxes, etc. With Hyundai's trim strategy for the Tucson Hybrid, it actually makes some sense. The SE gives you the basics with the same hybrid powertrain. The SEL adds convenience features and better interior materials. The XRT focuses on outdoor aesthetics for adventure cosplay. The Limited includes everything: premium audio, leather, surround cameras, and every safety system Hyundai makes. Each trim serves a specific buyer type without ridiculous gaps or forced option packages. So for the Tucson Hybrid, you can actually choose the trim, the features, and the luxuries that you want rather than what the manufacturer thinks you should have. My verdict? Well, let's start with fuel consumption because this is a hybrid after all. I've been averaging in city and highway driving about 30 miles per gallon or about 8 liters per 100 kilometers for my Canadian friends. As for this Hyundai, well, I think they've leveled up their game when it comes to the Tucson Hybrid. The eMotion system isn't marketing fluff. It genuinely transforms how this handles. Power delivery is immediate thanks to the electric motor. Steering has a little bit of feedback, and somehow they've managed to make 231 horsepower feel like enough. Is it going to embarrass a BMW X3? No. But it doesn't drive like it's apologizing for being a hybrid either, and in this segment, that's rarer than you think. The real surprise isn't that it's quick, and it's quick enough, but it is confident, and that kind of confidence makes all the difference when you're behind the wheel. From my perspective, if you are shopping for a mid-size hybrid crossover and actually care about driving dynamics, well, then this Tucson Hybrid should be on your list. It's got the efficiency you want, the capability you're after, obviously, and the engagement you didn't expect from a hybrid crossover. Pricing's competitive, warranty coverage is top-notch, and the ownership experience probably will be pretty painless. It's not perfect, no vehicle is, but it's very good at everything it attempts and doesn't make major compromises in pursuit of efficiency. In a segment full of appliances masquerading as automobiles, the Tucson Hybrid feels like a car that happens to be efficient rather than an efficiency exercise that happens to have wheels. It's the kind of crossover that makes you forget you're driving a hybrid until you see your fuel economy numbers, which is exactly what a hybrid should be. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this 2026 Hyundai Tucson Hybrid. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, you're not new, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications like this, and as always, sharing is caring. So please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time. And remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even Hyundai Tucsons. And since you've hung around this long, well, have a look at the last Tucson we drove on this channel. It was the XRT, and I think you might find that episode interesting. Thanks again for watching. See you again next time.